Oh my god, right, fuck it, I'll do it in post. I'll bump it up. So, hello, welcome to the podcast, Drunk History Middle Earth. It's Tolkien Tavern Talk, where we break down lore and concepts from the world of J.R.R. Tolkien as if you're talking to a friend in the pub. This is our drunk talk episode where we actually are drinking while we're recording, but we've also had the bedtime from hell with our toddler. It's now 9:10. I took her up at 7:15 and she's still not asleep. So we've had to retreat from our studio into the living room and record on my mobile phone.
Also, to say that we say it's drunk talk, we're not that bad. We are drinking tame spirits. Not even spirits, we're just drinking tame things, really, aren't we? Beers.
I've just had this, Becca got me a Aunt Bessie's Jam Roly Poly beer from Home Bargains, a Jam Roly Poly and Custard IPA, and it was actually quite nice. Solid 6 out of 10.
Yeah.
Back on the Fosters now, but Becca's got some weird little baby sham shit.
No, I've got Bucks Fizz.
Oh, Bucks Fizz, that's it.
I tried to get Baby Sham or Snowball.
Oh, yeah.
But it's a dying out thing now, I think. It's obviously not trendy enough and we're getting old. So, hunted everywhere for Snowball, ready-made, and they didn't have any. Then came home, realised we've got some Advocate in the cupboard, so I just need lemonade. So, fuck it, we haven't got one.
Yeah, we're doing festive drinks because it's nearly Christmas, and we're going to do the festivals of Middle Earth. So it's going to be a little bit more of a casual one. I would have loved to go into loads of detail and language. There's still some language right at the end, but it's not too heavy. And surprisingly, Tolkien didn't write as much about it as I would have expected. And what's been really dangerous here, right? Lots of people, especially the Tumblr crowd, they've written their own fan fiction and just posited it as fact. So there was a whole article that I was reading earlier that was all about the Rohirrim calendar and their how they worshipped Oromir. And I got to the end of it and I was looking at I'm a studious scholar, right? I look for the footnotes, I look for the sources so I can chase it down, because I will never repeat anything unless I can back it up. There is nothing on this podcast, unless I said this is my speculation, there's nothing on this podcast that I won't be able to back up in one way or another with the writings of J.R.R. Tolkien.
Yeah.
And I'm very well practiced at it because I'm in the book club that we talk about it constantly. And
you're not just talking confidently.
Yeah, I'm talking confidently.
Yeah. I set you up good there, didn't I?
Yeah. Right, anyway, so the point is, right, there's a lot of this shit where I've been like, oh, that's fucking mint. And it even breaks my heart. There's a lot of stuff written about the dwarves, some of their their holidays. And it's written amazingly.
They like to party?
Yes. But the only dwarven holiday ever written about was Durin's Day. And it's very spurious even then. That's just the start of their calendar.
Yeah.
It doesn't say what they do on those days or anything like that. So what we do have, I'll go through. And we'll go through the seasons. So we'll go spring, summer, autumn, winter. And we'll just proceed that way because there's quite a few. And I thought it'd be a nice little way to do a Christmas. I'm not sure when this episode will come out. Me and Becca have been discussing this because, as you know, if you're listening to this, I've dropped back to a 2-week schedule because of work and life and what have you. 2 weeks is about manageable for an episode for us. But we find ourselves in a weird position around Christmas where instead of having less episodes, I've actually got 3 ready to go. So I'm not sure what to do with them because I don't want to delay our Noldor episodes, which will be due out a few days after recording this. And I think I might release this one on Christmas Day, like we discussed. So Merry Christmas, if you're listening today.
Merry Chrysler.
Merry Crisis. And if you're listening to it the day after, Merry Boxing Day.
Yeah.
And if you're listening to it even further after that, you've missed the boat.
Happy New Year.
I don't know when the fuck you're listening to this. Is England still a thing? I don't know. Imagine if someone listens to this and they were like, this is the last recording before the world ended. And
I
it's
feel
just
like that's what it was like in the shops. So as I was running around the shops looking for festive drinks, there was a shit selection. And shopping, it was like, so right now we're a week before Christmas, more than a week. And the shops are just completely empty as if COVID is happening again. And I'm not sure whether I've missed something because we don't really watch the news. So have I missed something? Like, are we having our last Christmas ever?
I don't know. It's weird. It is weird.
Why is there no turkeys left?
So when I was 17, I did Christmas shifts in Asda.
Yeah.
As an order picker. So anybody who from like the UK, or I don't know how it works in other countries, but when you order your shopping online,
Walmart in America.
Yeah. So if you order your food online, someone has to go around the shop and pick it. And when I was 17, so like 13 years ago now, I'm 30. So when I was 17, I worked there for some Christmas money. And the worst thing is we earned 400 quid. Like we worked ourselves to the bone, me and my college mates.
Yeah.
400 quid were like each we got. We blew it all in one night at this shitty little pub. It's the most hot, and any of my friends from Stockton who are listening to this will know the pub I'm talking about. And we blew 400 quid each in one night on like fucking Jaeger bombs and stuff. And honestly, it was a good night, but still, like, it was proper.
It was worth all those grueling 4 weeks.
Absolutely. But anyway, the point was, I worked in an Asda in a very rough area, and I used to do like the 5:30 until 2 o'clock shift. So
what do you mean, rough area? Stockton is...
Shut up. For 5:30 in the morning until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And on Christmas Eve, I saw two very fat women get into a fist fight. And it wasn't like fat women, like, kind of like cute BBW. It was more like fat with loads of tattoos, rough as fuck, 3 teeth between them, from like a really rough area of like England. They got into a fist fight over the last turkey, and it was amazing to hear like the slapping sounds of the punches as they like pummeled into each other. It was. Have you ever slapped custard?
Yeah, but what I'm imagining is Jackass when they do the slow motion of what's that big guy called?
Preston.
Yeah. When they do the slow mos of Preston, I'm just imagining like when Preston's hitting the face by stuff and they slow mo it.
13 years later, I'm still thinking about this. It was unreal.
I've heard this story so many times.
It sticks with me. And the thing was, like, there's that, and Alan Sugar had a book out around that time, and anybody who's worked in like retail or worked in a shop will understand this, that around Christmas or around holidays or events or whatever, they normally put on like a very small selection of things they want to promote, and it just plays and plays and plays and plays and plays. So every time I hear Alan Sugar's voice, like, I just want to punch the cunt, because he had a book out around that time, and that's all I was hearing for like fucking 8 hours a day. Oh, good times.
Nothing personal.
Yeah, nothing personal, Mr. Sugar. I know you listen.
Sugar daddy.
Anyway, right. Well, the thing is, I'd ask you what you know about the festivals of Middle-earth, but I didn't know anything, so I don't know what the fuck you'd know.
I'm going to say...
That's not a slight against you. I just mean, it's not really mentioned in the books much. It's not mentioned in the films much.
So, off the top of my head, I'm going to say that the Hobbits have a lot of festivals because they harvest a lot of crops.
Yeah.
And they work the land a lot. So you would assume that they would have like a harvest festival, beginning of harvest season. They like to have parties, as you see in the films, but also like for birthdays. I feel like.
So, yeah, when I looked at festivals, I looked more at like national
holidays,
like times of year, because you're right. So, for example, I didn't include Bilbo's birthday party.
Yeah.
Even though in the 17 years between Bilbo going away and Frodo leaving the Shire, Frodo would celebrate it with like close friends. I took it more out to like a national level.
Yeah, I understand that, but I mean in terms of the birthday and how they celebrated that, you would assume that they would be very...
Yeah, you would. And that's the thing, is like Tolkien didn't write a lot about the actual calendars, about the actual like events themselves. He wrote mainly about the calendars.
Yeah, because he had no friggin' time. He was writing about every inch, nook and cranny of every other aspect of life.
Yeah, true. So one thing I wanted to talk about, which I thought was interesting, was before we look at actual festivals, the seasons work a little bit differently in Middle-earth than they do in ours. There is 6 seasons in Middle-earth. So this is according to the Elvish calendar, where they split the year into 6 seasons. But they also the hobbits and the elves have a similar concept for things. But we'll go with the Elvish one first, right? So the seasons are spring, summer, autumn. Then there's a small gap, that's not a season, which I'll come into in a second. And then the fading, which is late autumn. Then winter. Then the stirring, which is just when the world's starting to wake up from winter. So they make sense. The seasons make sense. Like
Are you shitting me? That's not the... He's just kept the names as well?
Yeah. Well, there is other names for them.
Oh, yeah.
So the Elvish calendar, they're bookended by the first day and the last day. Those are 2 celebrations of themselves, and those are the 5th and the 6th of April, respectively. Mm-hmm. And with it being elves, I wonder if it's ever tied to like Yavanna and like the Spring of Ardor and the feast before Melkor attacked and what have you. But who knows? So there's 6 seasons. You understand that? Yeah. Spring, summer, autumn, fading, winter, stirring.
If I've got this far, I think I understand that there's 6 seasons.
Fading and stirring is the ones we're looking at, right? But then they've got a concept that is kind of like a gap between months or a gap between seasons. And the elves call that Enderi, which it's not really a festival or anything per se, but it's a period of 3 days or more on the Elvish calendar that separates months. And in the calendar of Rivendell, there's 3 Enderi were set between the seasons of Yavi, which is early autumn, and Quelle, which is leaf fall or late autumn. And then every 12 years, because remember, elves use base 12 as their counting system.
Yeah.
Every 12 years, the Enderi would double, so their leap year was like, instead of 6 Enderi between 2 times, you'd have 12 Enderi.
Right, okay.
So it'd be like maybe 6 days between each gap of the season. Then the Hobbits had something similar. I couldn't find it for anybody else, but the Hobbits had something very similar. They had feast days between June and July. Sometimes there was 3 days, but sometimes there was 4 days, depending on the year. And they were called Lithe days. But because they were between June and July, it made me laugh because, like, do you know when you were a kid and you'd say, like, oh, I'll give you it on the 2nd of Jalemba?
Yeah.
Or, like, Juneva. Tolkien actually fucking made it up. He did it. He put it into writing. Jalemba.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, so the Hobbits between June and July, like, roughly, they have different names for the months, but I don't want to go into it in this because I wanted to so badly.
But that's for another episode.
Yeah, it is, because it wouldn't be fair to you to make you sit through it all. And because of the way that the calendars would work out, I think it'd be a much more intense episode, so that'll just be a Chris solo episode where I just go into the detail of how the calendars and the months break down for the different races and what they're called, which, because again, it's a lot to do with...
bamboozling.
Like etymology and that, yeah. So Hobbits had Lithe days, which were 3 or 4 feast days, and it's on these Lithe days that some of their events take place. So, how are you feeling so far? You feeling good?
Yep.
Okay, so should we start with spring?
What happens in spring?
Spring has sprung. In spring, in Númenor, there is an event called the Eru Kierme, which means prayer to Eru. And
Nice.
it's one of the 3 Númenorian prayers to Eru. And what would happen is, this is going to be a pattern here. In Númenor, these 3 events generally are the king or queen ascends Meneltarma. Mm-hmm. Meneltarma being the biggest, the biggest mountain. It's the. Do you remember we talked about? I can't remember what episode it was. Oh, I think it was the Eagles. It was the Eagle episode where Meneltarma is the sacred mountain where nobody is allowed to speak on it except the king or queen. And it was like, it was so holy that even animals would stay off it. And so what they do is during the Eru Kierme, which means prayer to Eru, they descend the Meneltarma, the king or queen, followed by a silent crowd because nobody was meant to speak. And then they would give a prayer to Eru in the hopes of a good year. And this marked the start of their new year religiously. However, the Númenóreans always started their political year in midwinter through like Yule, so like our New Year.
Right, okay.
Our version of New Year. So they had like two calendars. It was pointed to maybe they had two calendars, like a religious calendar and
Like
a political or civil.
We have a normal calendar and then a financial year.
Oh shit,
And, like,
yeah. That's good,
academic
that.
year.
Oh, fuck yeah, that's really good. I think the financial one is good, except we swap it around. It's as if our financial year started on the 1st of January, and then the rest of it started on the 5th of April.
Okay.
So it's exactly, yeah, it's like, fuck, I'd never even thought
No,
of that.
our financial year starts in April.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So it's as if the financial year started on the 1st of January,
Right, okay.
and then the rest of the year started on the 5th of April.
Yeah, I get it now. Yeah.
That's exactly what I said in the first time, anyway. Fuck you.
Yeah, but it just didn't connect until you repeated it again in a different way.
Oh, dear. Oh, my God.
Right.
I haven't got to looking for this Bucks Fizz.
Right, it's 4%.
I know, but...
And it's a product of Spain and it's got orange juice in it. It tastes like pop.
You've literally,
have a taste.
You've
Go on
literally
then.
just read the label to me.
Go on, just have a taste. It's not that great. Don't buy Asda Bucks Fizz. Just
That tastes like repressed memories of abuse at Christmas.
It tastes like bad dilute orange.
It does. It tastes like... So when I was little, right, we were too poor for, like, tango. So we used to get orange squash, and then
Orange.
you'd maybe get a little bit of, like, lemonade in it, or, like, whatever was cheaper, and then you could get orangeade. It tastes like orangeade, actually. Shit, yeah.
Yeah.
So, after... We're still in spring. After the Eru Kierme, you had... This isn't in chronological order, because the Númenor was in the second age. Númenor was in the second age, but this one is called Mereth Aderthad, which is topical for me and you, because not like 2 days ago we recorded our Noldor episode, the last episode of the Noldor series, before I do my language one. But this is, do you remember we ended that series where Fingolfin got to the Mithrim, the lake?
Yeah.
And then the Feanor's people moved to the south. Yeah, they split, yeah? So Fingolfin and Feanor split. But 20 years after that, so 20 years after the sun rose, Fingolfin threw a great feast in Beleriand near the Mountains of Shadow. Do you know where Feanor died?
Yeah.
Where Morgoth's army came from? And he threw a feast to reunite all of the elves in Beleriand to one cause. And he threw this feast 20 years after the rising of the sun. And ambassadors from all the elves came and celebrated with each other. And the point of this was Fingolfin knew that they were all divided. So the Noldor had just got there. The Nandor and like were still living out in Osirian somewhere. So, you know, Thingol had said you could settle, but you're still like a people apart. There was Thingol's people, like the Sindarin. There was the Círdan's people off just on the coast. So Fingolfin said, we all have a common enemy and we are all kindred. We're all elves. Let's come and just make peace with each other. Because obviously there was still a bit of there was a massive soreness between even the Noldor, Fingolfin's people, and Feanor's people. So it was this feast. And we've got the dog in the room, we've got our Labrador in the room with us.
He looks very majestic.
He's just sat up and is looking very majestic at us in a way that, you know, like anyone who's got a Labrador or a Golden Retriever would know that look where they lean against something and they're just still sat up and they just look so majestic.
We've looked at him for too long.
Yeah.
He wants a tickle now.
Anyway, so this feast, the Mereth Aderthad, was like the last real bit of peace before the Wars of Beleriand kicked off again. And I think it might be the Siege of Angband that came after this. But it was said that it was remembered for a long, long time that Fingolfin kind of did what he needed to. And he got a bit of peace before shit started kicking off again. Which, you know, is very good. So that's 2 festivals. Let's go to another one that's held in spring. And it's called the Nost Nalothion. And this is from a much, much earlier version of the Legendarium. So I've not really exposed you to it much, but there's like the Legendarium that we know and love now in the things that we're talking about. But a much earlier version was the Book of Lost Tales, Part 1 and 2. And that was Tolkien's first attempts at what would become the Legendarium. And in that, Elfwine, who is like a sailor, ends up on on what is Erisea, and he gets told the history of the world by the elves, and that's the framing story. And so many different things, like the elves were called gnomes, and it was much more like fantastical. It was more like fairy tales of ancient England than Middle Earth. And this Nos na Lothion was a spring festival held in the hidden city of Gondolin, which you've heard me mention. And what this was when the ice melted after winter, and the flowers came. So there was the valley of Tumladen, which is where Gondolin was, and this festival was when the hidden city of Gondolin, when the ice melted, and the valley just bloomed into flower again, and that's the festival. So that's all I could really find for spring. Like I said, like those are actual festivals, but there's other things that are like events. You know, so for example, there's general holidays. Like I'll just rattle through them. There's general holidays that are observed with elves and men, and hobbits, and so like they might have different names for them, but generally, the elvish names is the winter solstice. Solstice is Ystara. Then the vernal equinox or the spring equinox is Tuilere. Then you've got the summer solstice, Loende, and the autumnal equinox, Javiere. So, like, you've got the equinoxes and the solstice. Generally, each race will, or each culture probably celebrates it or observes it, at least, like it's in their calendar. But we're talking about some of the other kind of like more specific things. It's right, funny.
If anyone is...
If I don't manage to catch this in post, right, me and Becca love to sit with like the videos of fireplaces on because it's just so relaxing. And we normally put it on YouTube, but we couldn't remember which one doesn't have adverts. So to play it safe, we've put it on Disney Plus, and it's the Arendelle one from Frozen. So every like few minutes, Olaf, the little snowman, runs across the fucking screen.
Yeah, chasing the butterfly. Which I've never watched this long enough to realise that. But it's really cute and festive.
It's very cute. Oh, it's cute. So that's spring. Let's move on to summer. Eru Laetale, which means praise of Eru. It's the Númenóreans again. There's 3. This is number 2. And again, I don't really know what else to say except it's a praise of Eru. It's done on Meneltama, and the eagles witness it. And they always kind of take the eagles as witnesses of Manwë as approval, that Manwë approves of what they're doing. And we do see, like, during the downfall of Númenor, that the eagles, when they stop showing up, you know, shit's bad. And then Manwë tried to warn them by sending a giant eagle cloud.
Yeah.
When Sauron had like corrupted them and to get Ar-Pharazôn to start the Great Armament and stuff like that. The next one is one that you'd be interested in. It's the Free Fair, which is the Hobbits. So this is celebrated during their Lithe days, which is, you know, like the days between the months.
Yeah.
So this is celebrated in Jalemba. And it takes place in the White Downs near Mickle-Delving. And Mickle-Delving is the capital town of the Shire. And the Free Fair is called the Free Fair because everyone turns up with their stalls to like pitch up their stalls and sell stuff. But it's free to pitch the stalls, so that's why it's called the Free Fair. But there's also like political things that happen here, is that appointments are made, and to me though, it kind of it's smacked a bit of, do you know the All thing for that Vikings have, the All thing?
Yeah, sorry,
where they'd go
just pouring
mulled wine, yeah. So like the Hobbits would have a market. And the Free Fair is where you could put your stall up. And Lord of the Rings Online celebrates this, I think. And it's pretty cool. But you could turn up, sell your wares and what have you. But it's also where political appointments were made. And it's where the mayor of the Shire was appointed. So after the War of the Ring and the Scouring of the Shire, which we covered in our Hobbits episode, we've got an episode on the Scouring of the Shire. Frodo at one of these resigns as the deputy mayor because he took over temporarily, and then Will Whitfoot returns to office for 7 years as a mayor of the Shire, and then when he steps down, Samwise Gamgee is appointed at a free fair.
Right.
And that's when Sam becomes mayor for 49 years. So 7 terms of 7 years. And then it's after that when he's done with that, he goes to join Frodo, which is nice. So that's Hobbiton, which is good.
I'd like to know what they were eating and drinking at these things.
I know.
Was it a piss up? Was it just...
There is an account. So there's a woman called, I don't think I've mentioned it here actually. There's a woman from the book club called Emma, and she's Swiss but she lives in Canada, right? And she's got this account called An Unquenchable Hobbit, and I'll show you it after this, but it's not Lord of the Rings. Well, there is a lot of lore there, but her whole account is cozy as fuck because all she does is she cooks Hobbit like Lord of the Rings inspired stuff, or like it's called like Hobbit Core. So she all she posts is like really cozy videos of like cottages that are like Hobbit houses, and she's got one up for Eru Hantali, which we'll come to, which is in the autumn. Spoiler, but Eru Hantali, where she went through like some of the writings and then was like, oh well, Numenorians like fish, so I'm going to cook a fish dish, and like I'll show you, it's fucking mint. So she made this whole like menu based around what she thought the holidays would be like, and then she's got one for Yule, and I don't think she's done the menu yet because she only really. Funnily enough, we were talking today, me and her, and we were talking about like just general stuff, and I was like, oh, I'm getting ready to record this episode, and I was like, oh cool, and then she already must have had a post planned because about an hour before we started recording, I looked on Instagram and I saw that she'd got her Yule post out, and she was saying like she was going to look at the menu for it, and it's so fucking good. It's just proper, like
wholesome.
It's wholesome and cozy. It's like it's proper cozy, and it's one of those accounts I know you'll love because you'll love Yule log. It's one of those accounts I know that you'll love because it is that like no negativity, just kind of food, comfort, snow and dogs.
Check.
Yeah. Anyway, right, that's enough of a plug, Emma. That's all you get, and I'm never going to mention you again. Right. The Gates of Summer. We go back to the hidden city of Gondolin for this one. And I like this one. Like, this one was really fucking cool when I looked into it. So, it comes from an earlier version of the Legendarium, again, which, like the Lost Tales, but the elves would gather at midnight the day before the first day of summer. And at midnight, they'd have a very solemn ceremony where they'd be completely silent. And they would stand in silence on the east wall of Gondolin. And they'd stand there. And remember, Gondolin's a hidden city surrounded by mountains. And they would not speak a word until the dawn of Tarnin Austwa, which is the first day of summer. And as soon as the sun would rise above the mountains, the elves would burst into song, ancient songs and choirs, and they'd start singing. And what they'd happen is, before this, they'd have placed lamps, silver lamps, all through the city, and on the trees that they've just had their leaves have regrown, that have hung jeweled lights of like different colours, like ruby, sapphires, emeralds, like different,
the sun to shine through,
to hit them. And the whole place would burst into light and song, and it'd be absolutely beautiful.
That sounds pretty intense and immense.
It does sound. It sounds like something you'd want to see. Yeah. Like that when you talk about the elder days of the elves and like the heyday of Middle Earth, that sounds like something you'd want to see there. But it was on one of these days that Morgoth attacked Gondolin. And that led to the
bastard.
That led to the fall of Gondolin. That is the title of the story.
In spring or when there wasn't exciting things going on.
Yep. Well, it's all because of an incel called Eol. No, sorry, Maeglin. Eol's his dad. An incel who wanted to fuck his own cousin, so much so that he betrayed an entire city. What a pussyhole.
Anyway, moving swiftly on this really festive Christmassy episode
Well, I thought...
of I Want to Fuck My Cousin.
Well, I thought we'd finish on Christmas. This is me telling you we're getting a divorce. Right, autumn. This was the High Feast. This is what sparked the whole episode, which is crazy. So this was the High Feast is from the Valar. This is a feast that Manwë had made in order to celebrate the gathering of the fruit each year in Valinor.
Harvest.
Yeah, it's the Harvest Festival, right? So I looked again. So during this feast, the Valar and the Maiar, they were bidden. So it was the elves weren't really like forced to come, but it was like the Maiar and the Valar come to Taniquetil, come to our house, sing, be merry, feast, and that was chilling, right? That was most of it, and it goes back to. Do you remember when they used to live on Almarin before Arda got fucked up by Melkor? Do you remember when it was the perfect world and they lived on the island in the middle? I think it calls back to that. And it was at one of these feasts that we've just literally got done talking about, the Darkening of Valinor, that the Vanyar and the Noldor were there. And that's covered in our Noldor series and the Ungoliant episode, blah, blah, blah. But this feast corresponds most closely with the harvest festivals in our real world. Most of these festivals we've discussed will have some analogue in the real world because we fucking celebrate everything. But this is the one I want to focus on. So notable examples, obviously, is the Harvest Festival in the UK because we're English. Also, Thanksgiving in the US. Now, I looked into it because so weird, like drip-fed media, and like we're always seeing that Thanksgiving was about the Pilgrims and the Indians, right? Or whatever the fucking term is, natives. That would be the term, Chris. It's not really contentious. But like the Pilgrims and the Indians or the natives, right? What? Okay?
Yeah.
So we know that. But again, you look a bit deeper, well, not a bit deeper, just look at why they were doing it. It's the same thing. It was just a harvest festival. They were celebrating that they'd had such good, the Pilgrims were saying we had such good crops. Let's share it with the natives. And that's where it gets contentious. It's like, were they really? Were they, Jay? Were they, Jay? Does it, Jay?
On their land.
I'm just thinking of, do you know, This Is the End, where he's like, the power of Christ compels you. It's like, does it, Jay?
Yeah.
So really? But yeah, so Thanksgiving in the US fundamentally was literally a harvest festival. Then I've got some other examples I wanted to just quickly gloss over. Because it's really, really old traditions. Basically, any time humans have gathered enough food since the agricultural revolution that they're not going to starve over winter, they've been like, this is fucking mint, let's have a party.
Let's eat all the food
Woohoo!
that we've made.
Not going to have to eat my wife this year. Woohoo!
Yeah.
Cornwall in the UK has its own separate one. I didn't know that. I'm now wondering about Cornish lifestyle. Because I know like there's like Cornish independence and I need, as someone who lives in England, I need to be wary of them in case they ever try something and I'm not prepared for it. But they have a ritual called Guldees.
Is that where they like roll a pasty down a hill or something?
No, it's Guldees these nuts. No, they have a festival called Guldees where it's like a harvest festival, but they have something called Cry in the Neck, which is where they grab the last handful of corn and hold it above their heads, and then there's a series of chants where they say like I have, and they say like what have thee, and they say corn, and they say way Mr. Farmer. So like that's the whole thing, and then they take that corn and carry it through the streets. Like it's like the last handful of corn for the harvest festival.
Oh, that's nice. I like that.
That's pretty cool, and it's wild, but I got to move on. Okay, yeah. So in Poland they had Bożynki, which is just a harvest festival like any other. I think there was another one which was like the presidential harvest feast, but I couldn't really find any information on it, so I don't know if there is actually a difference. Germany has Erntedankfest, which takes place the first Sunday after Michaelmas.
Michaelmas.
Is it Michaelmas?
Yeah.
The feast of St. Michael. And Finland has Kekri, but that seems to have been largely taken up by Christmas. You've got something on your face, you're right.
Jeez.
And then Catholic parts of Switzerland have Benichon, which is where the animals are brought back down out the Alps. And anyway, like it goes on like that, right? So basically, anywhere where you could grow food over the winter, we fucking did. And then same in Middle-earth. There was also one which entered into the calendar after Lord of the Rings, which was Corn Mare, which was in autumn, again, this is the season we're covering, which was celebrating Frodo's birthday after the War of the Ring, because it's called Ring Day. Everyone had copious amounts of anal sex on Ring Day. And that was on... so Frodo's birthday was on the 22nd of September, but the Gondor calendar was just different enough that they celebrated on the 30th of that month, so fuck knows.
Hands up if everyone who likes Ring Day.
There's a lot more male hands up than female there. Then there's Eru Hantali, which we talked about with Emma. And this is the last of the 3 prayers to Eru, and it just means Thanksgiving to Eru. And again, the eagles would witness, the queen would make a speech, blah, 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 blah. Now, the next one, which is pretty fucking cool. This was the Great Bear Dance of Tompole. And this was shortly after the Eru Hantali, and it started on the island of Numenor. So what would happen is that many bears, because you remember Numenorian bears were friendly?
Yeah.
And many bears of Numenor would gather together and dance for their human friends. And it was a very solemn occasion, so like, it said that no human dared laugh because bears...
would rip their faces off.
Well, yeah, well, kind of, but they didn't understand human laughter and they didn't like it. But it wasn't really an occasion for like fun. It was more of a solemn dance.
So I would probably be that mad bastard who'd be trying to hold in laughter, because when I'm told not to laugh, it makes me want to laugh more. It's like when an old granny falls over.
Yeah.
And you go to help, but at the same time, it was a really funny fall.
Yeah, but apart at one time you might have as many as 50 black Numenorian bears down dancing. I think there might have been brown as well, but definitely not as black. And it became so popular that like crowds of people would attend, and it became an actual event. And after the downfall of Numenor, it said that bears still danced east of the Misty Mountains and would gather outside of Beorn's Hall.
I was going to say, is Beorn featured in this?
Yeah. So they dance like till dawn.
The best bear.
Yeah, from like dusk till dawn or something. And then the next one you have is Durin's Day, which, as I mentioned, one of the only dwarf holidays written down. And it was celebrated by dwarves as their New Year, and it took place on the first day of the last moon of autumn on the threshold of winter. And when you saw the sun and the moon in the sky at the same time, that was Durin's Day. And I think, going by that calendar this year, it was like December the 13th was Durin's Day.
Well, are we at winter? Because I'm going to pour another glass of glühwein.
Yeah, pour your mulled wine. We are, oh shit, yeah, we are at winter actually.
No, it's glühwein.
Glühwein.
And it says a delicious pleasure.
I imagine anybody German or Austrian would punch you in the face if you said that.
Well, I've had mulled wine this morning for brunch.
Yep.
And that was lovely and warmed. And it's meant to be warmed, but I'm being a heathen and drinking it cold, and it's still as nice. So, just saying.
Oh, that's good then.
Do you want a taste?
No, thank you.
Just one sip.
You're such a fucking rapist. Yeah, I don't like it.
Well, you like this morning's.
Well, it was hot. I hate when you do this, though. You'll say, like, have some of this, and I'll say no, and you'll just keep going. You don't take no for an answer.
I said it once, and then you just gave in.
I've been married to you for long enough to know that you'll just keep going.
Christmas!
Yeah, right, let's get to winter. Yule. Love this one. So Yule seems to be the main festival, winter festival in Middle-earth, but it said that Yule is... So Gondor, when they hear the word Yule, they say, oh, that's the Northmen's word for the midwinter festival.
Right.
So it seems like Rohan, the Shire, and like the Northmen who the Rohirrim are descended from all use the term Yule.
Okay.
And it makes sense because after the Battle of Five Armies, Beorn summoned Northmen to his house to celebrate Yule after the battle. So it was mainly seen as a festival to mark the end of one year and the beginning of the next, and it was celebrated with feasting. It's like Christmas dinner and New Year's dinner and that. And I mentioned Beorn does it. So yeah, it's probably the one we know the most about, but also the one we needed to know the least about because we've got a perfect analogue
Yeah.
The only thing to mention about the dates, I think, is that if you follow the calendar, Yule this year falls on the 21st and the 22nd of December because it does Fridays and Saturdays.
Right.
It's Yule 1 and Yule 2. And then, so the Hobbits, for example, do 6 days of Yule. So they'll do 4 Yule and after Yule. So 2 days 4 Yule, 2 days Yule, 2 days after Yule. So they take 6 days to celebrate it. 2 before, 2 of, 2 after.
Yeah.
And that's them celebrating their New Year. That make sense?
Yeah. It was just at first you said 4 before 2 and then 2. So I got a bit confused. But it's 2, 2, 2.
Yeah. So 2 before, 2 of, 2 after.
You seem a bit distracted.
I'm fine. Yeah. Shush. It's not appropriate.
10 minutes later.
The next one. Shut up, the magic of editing. The next one is Turu Halme. And this is, again, it's from an earlier version of the Legendarium. It's the Book of Lost Tales. And this was a winter festival, which I think sounded the best, which was bringing in the wood to feed the tail fire. And that's not when you've got gonorrhea. The tail fire is where you tell stories and drink and eat around the table, around the fire, sorry, and tell stories. And afterwards, or beforehand, you go out and you play in the snow. So it was a day for snow sports.
Ah, so they had the same sort of meteorology as we do.
Yeah, they still had winters.
No, but I mean like, oh yeah, okay, I'm sounding a bit daft. It's because I've had too much glue wine.
Jackass. So yeah, they play sports in the snow, bring in the logs, drink, eat, tell stories.
Yeah.
And it's during one of these that Elfwine, who is the earliest protagonist in the earliest versions of the Legendarium.
But isn't actually an elf.
No, he's a sailor, and he is told about the flight of the Noldor from what would become the Noldor from what would become Valinor. Now, the next one for winter that I came across was Feast of Felling. Now, you won't be aware of this, but there is a work that Tolkien started going on with and then stopped. That's called The New Shadow. And that was set after the events of Lord of the Rings, where a cult was trying to bring Sauron back. But he didn't like the idea of the long defeat, and so stopped it. But from it, there is a reference to something called the Feast of Felling, which is a very spurious reference, but it said, like, in the conversation between two people, they say that you can't hang your axes on the wall because of the Feast of Felling. And it's important to note that in this story, the dark tree is used as an abstract reference to evil. So from that, we can kind of try and extrapolate in that the Feast of Felling might be a holiday or festival where you celebrate driving back the darkness or driving back evil using your axes. So you might even go as far as to say it might be an analogue for Christmas, because you'd cut down you'd cut down your tree to and then light it with things to drive back the evil. Now, I'll go a step further. Now, this is not supported by any writing. This is 100% Chris using what he's learned. So the Fellowship sets out from Rivendell on the 25th of December, and the ring is destroyed on the 25th of March. 2 dates very important: the day Jesus was born, the day Jesus died. Right?
Yeah.
I would say that if this was set long after Lord of the Rings, like 100 years or so, 120 years, that the Feast of Felling would be celebrating the Fellowship setting out from Rivendell to drive back the darkness of Sauron. Again, not supported in the writings. That is 100% my speculation based on the dates. So if you see it pop up in a YouTube video, tag me, because some cunt's stealing my ideas. And then I've only got 2 more. That was it for winter. Got 2 more. One I don't know the origin of whatsoever, and the other one I know more about, but still it doesn't fit in any season. So the first one, and I'm going to get weird with it here, Savale, which is a Quenya word, and the Quenya word means purification or washing or bathing. And that's all we know about it. It's referred to as if it's a ritualized form of bathing, but nothing else we know really fits that from what Tolkien wrote about. And this word originates from the Quenya lexicon published by Tolkien in 1917. So, again, this is Chris, not any of the writings. My speculation here is that because that's such an early version of the language, and so early on in his writings, that it appeared in the language with an intent to tie an event to it, but then he changed it, he revised it, he moved it on, blah blah blah, and later on in Quenya, Savali does just mean like washing. It's had the ritual element removed. So at some point, Tolkien might have planned that there was a ritual that required purification or bathing. And I don't think that's too far. And again, this is Chris, this is speculation again. I don't think that's too far removed from being believable, because ritualized bathing is very common in today's world. Baptism.
Yeah.
That whatever they do in the Ganges.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's the main two. But again, given that he's Catholic, I thought something to do with baptism might be, it might have been. And I'd go even further, right? Again, 100% Chris, just speculating. What if the elves recreated bathing in Cuivainen as like a remembrance of where they were from? That'd be a pretty cool one. Like they ritually bathe in waters to remind themselves of waking up on the waters of Cuivainen. But
might just be good exfoliation. Might be like a Dead Sea scrub. And people go and float in the Dead Sea.
That might be it, aye.
Yeah.
And then the last one for today, before I move on to just tie off some of the stuff, is the standing silence. And I left this one to last because I thought it was really interesting, because this one is still used today, in today's world, with us. Well, not me specifically, but humans in general. This was a Gondorian custom, to stand for a moment of silence, facing west before a meal. And Faramir told Frodo, "We look toward Numenor that was, and beyond to Elvenhome that is, and to that which is beyond Elvenhome and will ever be." Which is a prayer, right?
Yeah.
So we look back to the past of Numenor, we look beyond to Valinor, and we look beyond that to the timeless halls. That is, again, so Elvenhome, that is, immortal.
The past, the present, and the future.
Yeah, yeah. And also another interpretation that I would have, I didn't think of that, but yeah. Another one that I was going to go with was Elvenhome, Valinor, immortal. Beyond Elvenhome will ever be eternal. To the timeless halls versus, Valinor. But it's still used today because the Tolkien Society, of which I'm a member, but I've not attended any in-person events. At events, apparently they still do this, where before a meal, they'll stand and face west, and the chairman or the chairperson or whoever will read out that little thing as a ritual way of bonding people together. So that standing silence as a festival is still used. Nice. Which is
classy.
Pretty interesting, yeah. I just got a little bit of language stuff, which I hope you can bear with me, if you'd be so very, very kind.
Do I need to pour another gallon of blue wine?
It's not long. We're nearly at the end, though. It's not a long episode. Cormare, which means ring day, is Quenyan from Corma, meaning ring, and Re, meaning day, ring day. Then the High Feast, which I mentioned earlier, in the earliest versions of the Legendarium, again, Lost Tales, was called the Feast of Double Mirth, which had an Elvish name of Samirian. Then there was I like these ones. There was a Quenyan term that described a whole phrase. So one word described the whole phrase. And the phrase was to describe Yule and the beginning of the sun's return. So Christmas and just immediately what comes after when it stops getting so dark. And it was called Amana. And that little word was used to describe the new year and the world starting to wake up again, as Amana. And then the Turu Halme, which I mentioned was the snow sports one, that means log drawing, which from Quenyan, Turu, wood, and Halm, drawing. You're drawing in the logs, you're pulling them in.
Right, okay.
And there's a cognate for that, like a cognate again being a related word. In the Gnomish language, right, now the Gnomish language was one of the first languages that Tolkien developed. It would go on to become known as Noldorin, which we mentioned briefly, before eventually settling in to what we now call Sindarin. And we've got the two main Elvish languages of Quenya and Sindarin. So Gnomish, Noldorin, Sindarin. Quenya, mainly always been Quenya, I think. And the cognate for Turu Halme was Duru Kalmo and Halmana Thuruthon, which just got turned into Yule. He was like, no, fuck that. No, thank you. Thank God, because if he called it those things, I would never celebrate Christmas again. Imagine, and nobody in Middle Earth would... Feliz Halma Thuruthon. Yeah, fuck that. Too long.
Let's just stick to Merry Chrysler.
Merry Chrysler. Look at all these chickens. And two more. The bear dance in Quenya is called Ruxu Pandale or Ruxoale, which is just the Quenya word for the Great Bear Dance. It's bear dashed, it's bear hyphen dance, bear dance.
Okay.
Bear dance. And Ruxo Pandale or Ruxoale if you want to use Quenya. And in Mereth Aderthad, which is already an Elvish term, it means Feast of Reuniting in Sindarin. And weirdly enough, in Quenya, doesn't change anything, just adds another word to the translation. Mereth Aderthad in Quenya is the Feast of Games and Reuniting. Which is pretty cool. But yeah, that's as much as I could dig up on fairly short note. Like, as I mentioned, the problem I had here is people have added to this over time and just passed it off as fact. So I had to go back and dig out everything that I could only verifiably say,
yeah,
this is a festival that is actually celebrated.
That's the thing with literature and movies, any sort of art, is that it's open to interpretation. And that's great, but it's hard as someone who's genuinely trying to find the root of everything to sift through what's actually like fan fiction and what people enjoy and what people interpret from it to actual fact from the author.
Like, look, I'll put it this way, right? I've got all of the material that I can go and reference. It's just knowing where to go and reference it. So if I cannot find a single mention of whatever the fuck you're on about in every single Tolkien writing, you just straight up, you're doing it a disservice. By you shouldn't be passing off these things as fact. Like, so but that again, it's not really here nor there. I do my research so that you don't have to.
Yeah.
But as I've mentioned many times in this podcast, if you ever doubt anything I've said, go and look it up yourself. And if it turns out that I'm wrong, which I don't think I am,
call him out.
No, tell me. Yeah, say, hey man, look, I think you made a mistake here, and tell me why you think I've made a mistake and where your supporting evidence is coming from. Because again, I'm not someone who's afraid to change my mind or change my attitude based on new information. Like, if you're right, I'll be like, oh shit, yeah, you are right. If it's open to interpretation, I don't agree with your interpretation based on my own evidence.
Yeah.
We'll talk it out, but you know, it's not enough to say, oh, you were wrong, and then just not add anything to that. I had a lovely discussion, actually. It was actually quite a nice discussion, considering how Instagram comments go. Someone commented on one of my posts today saying, like, oh, do you not think Sauron's closer to the Catholic Church than something else? And we had a quite a lengthy discussion about how there's different interpretations of Tolkien's writings, and you don't have to buy into any of them, but the study in and of itself is quite fascinating. But the important thing is that the studies are backed up with reference to the source material, not just source. It was revealed to me in a dream. You know, like we're past the ancient Greek philosophy of dreams. Anyway, I'm rambling. This was a drunk talk episode. I'm quite drunk. Becca's quite drunk because she's just agreeing.
Jingle bells.
Yeah.
Gimli smells.
No.
Pippin laid an egg. And he lost his pants in the middle of Rohan and found them in...
No, that shit. Right, let's do another one. Right.
Hobbiton.
No, jingle bells, Shadowfax runs away. Oh, what fun it is to destroy
a Balrog on the bay. Hey!
Jingle bells, Gimli and Legolas are gay. Oh, what fun it is to ride each other in a pile of hay.
Hey!
Right, okay, right, no, we're drunk, we're rambling, so, yeah. Hope you enjoyed this. Merry Christmas if you're listening to this on Christmas. Merry Boxing Day if you're listening to it the day after. After that, you're on your own. You can go and fuck yourself, to be honest. And look out for our new episodes in the new year. We've got a lovely schedule coming up for year 2 of the podcast, which I'm excited about. And depending on how things go, the next episode might be a wee little language one from me about some Noldoran terms, or terms to do with the Noldor elves and etymologies. And then after that, we'll deal with Fëanor for a bit before we broaden our scope. Now, I don't want to say too much about that, but it makes me think of the Ainu Lindalay.
Oh, I'm excited.
Is all I can say for this, for what I've got planned for early next year.
Haven't got a clue.
Money and music is 2 of the big things I think we're going to look at in the next few months. But no, that's enough for today. So I'm going to say Merry Christmas again and goodbye from me, Chris.
And Happy New Year from Becca.
Bye.
Bye.